How would you balance those sort of short-term things versus longer plays like SEO and content and stuff like that?
So it depends on the business, right? So if you're talking about a volume business, so that's doing lots of very transactional, like your website is your shop store, because there are like Leadfeeder, for example, the company I just came from. They were very transactional, very volume-based business, like 7,000 paying customers, and at sort of 12 million ARR. So with that, SEO is incredibly important. So you want to make sure that you have somebody on the team that's very understands that side of things like the back of their hand from a technical perspective. Most importantly, because there's probably a ton of things that you can improve from a technical perspective on your site. And then on top of that, also from a content creation perspective. So what's dragging more eyeballs onto your site, right? In the on the larger tech space, so if you're talking about not larger tech space, larger deal size space. So if you're talking about ACVs of sort of, I don't know, over 50K, then SEO and so on is important, but it's not that important. So what you need to be doing is probably creating more meaningful content which will resonate within your total addressable market. But I wouldn't be looking at it from perspective, is this going to suit really well on Google? It should be. There should be elements of it there, but that's not the number one priority. And it should never be the number one priority for a large tech company that's selling large like multi-tens of thousands of dollar deals to be focused very heavily on SEO. Tick all the boxes, and that's something that you should be doing from the start anyway. I'd always start working with a web agency if you can afford it in-house. Work together with a web agency, make sure that the site speed is okay. Before I work with anybody, I'll always do a Lighthouse score on their site, regardless of how large their ACVs are. If the Lighthouse score basically just looks, it's Google's way of like basically summarizing how healthy your site is. And it's very much based off site speed and site experience. Okay. If you've got a low Lighthouse score, then I'll be like, we need to get that fixed. And typically it's just removing scripts from the site, removing heavy images, just making the site speed go up a little bit more. And you can pay an agency to do that. And then at the same time, once you're creating content, this is very much part of my approach. Content is not just do an ebook. Content is do an ebook, and off the back of the ebook, there will be 6 blog posts. Off the back of that ebook as well, there'll be a webinar. And in the webinar, we're going to push the ebook. And then from the blog post, we're going to push the ebook. And then from the webinar, we're also going to take videos from that. So it starts to sort of spider web its way out, right? So that you're not just focused on single content pieces. So actually, in that short-term approach, you've actually got long-term things that are happening as well, because you can create many content pieces off of one. And that's what's leading then towards SEO and brand, etc.
Yeah, you're repurposing it basically, aren't you? And I understand what you're saying at the sort of enterprise level, because I guess when you're selling that kind of stuff, it's typically bought by committee anyway. And are those sort of senior level decision makers going onto Google and searching for stuff? Probably not. So it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and you need to be looking at other things then. Long-term plays in the enterprise space would be working together with analysts to try to appear in reports, for example. So you should be working together with Forrester and Gartner to get into Gartner Magic Quadrant or Forrester Wave report. And that's what's going to get you in the doors with larger enterprise clients.